Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Jeannie Ives in for Amy J this morning. Jeannie, of course, hosts the show The Real Story with Jeannie Ives on our airwaves Sunday evenings, 7 to 9 p.m. We were talking about this squatters' rights problem that has really seemed to be experiencing an inflection point with all these stories coming out, Ron DeSantis and Florida Republicans taking legislative action on this. And one thing I just wanted to mention in terms of a cure for this, in addition to the legislative action at the state level, if you can't get legislative action at the state level, one of the things that should be done, and maybe we could get one of the public interest law firms like the one I co-founded, Liberty Justice Center, to take this up, but it's a Fifth Amendment takings violation. When you have, and this is an argument that Eugene Volokh, who's the great constitutional lawyer at UCLA, he's got a blog, Volokh Conspiracy. If you haven't read it, it's over at Reason Magazine. It's very good. He's very smart. But he's exactly right. It's sort of like thinking about the Twitter files. The government can't enlist a private party to do its bidding in a way that it couldn't do itself. This was, of course, with respect to First Amendment rights. Well, it's the same thing with a taking. The government, meaning Cook County government, L.A. County government, New York City government, they can't do through a private party what they couldn't do directly. In other words, they can't essentially weaponize eviction law to provide for open-ended occupation of somebody else's property, which is what they've done, even though they have this eviction protocol. This is an illegal taking for which the property owner is due just compensation, in my view, and forget my view, and Eugene Volokh's view, which actually carries some weight.
Well, it does feel like there should be some sort of action against the government that they took your property if they won't allow for the eviction to take place, or the police won't evict the person since you're the rightful owner. I mean, you should sue the government. I mean, we need that lawsuit to happen. If
you don't have property rights, you don't have a free society.
That's right.
And something else too. It's more than on just this squatters' rights issue. And it's funny because, not funny, but it's interesting funny. David Mamet, in his book The Secret Knowledge, which sort of it's got to be a decade at least since he wrote it, but it sort of tracks his move away from the Democrat socialists and towards free market conservatism. Mm-hmm. It was municipal government. It was these noxious busybodies who seek to regulate all aspects of your life, and particularly incursions into your private property rights, that really got him angry and then reflective.
Well, listen.
And he started to make the move. And so it's not just property rights in this sort of obvious and egregious context of somebody just saying, I'm staying at your place and you can't get me out. That's pretty straightforward. Let me tell you another story, or share another story with you.
Okay.
This is out of Oakland. Maybe RFK Jr. Nicole Shanahan could stop at the residence of Victor Silva after their big confab the other day, announcing Shanahan as his running mate. Or other people could take judicial notice of this in California. Maybe it's Steve Garvey over there, better yet. 102-year-old Oakland resident Victor Silva. 102-year-old.
Oh, yeah. I remember this one.
Oakland resident Victor Silva. And this is how he's being treated by the city of Oakland.
Wheelchair-bound, Oakland-born, 102 years old Victor Silva Sr. often finds graffiti painted onto his back fence of his Oakland home where he's lived and paid taxes for 80 years. Earlier this month, he got a violation citation from the city of Oakland to remove it by Tuesday the 19th or face an $1,100 fine plus an additional $1,277 for each failed reinspection.
It was so absurd, it's like a joke. If you drive around the city and see the graffiti everywhere, it's just, I don't know what to say.
I thought somebody's crazy.
In his younger years, before the wheelchair, he often painted over the graffiti himself.
Had a roller and a paintbrush and painted it. It was very, very easy. Because I was a contractor, you know. I'll be 103 in 2 months or so. Let's slow it up a little bit, you know.
These days, that task falls to his 70-year-old son, Victor Jr.
It's hard to keep up with it because as soon as we get it painted, it's good to be graffiti on it again. And it won't last.
But, like you said, there's graffiti right there. Who's fixing that?
Now, this utility box has 6 different kinds of graffiti on it. I wonder if the utility got a citation. The family owns a nearby small commercial building which has been broken into 3 times in the last year. On one occasion, Victor Jr. found a person inside. In each case, he called 911.
And I'm put on hold every time. So it's hard to understand where our tax dollars are going. They can't answer 911, but they can come out and hassle you about a fence.
I had to ask, how does one live to 102 or 103?
Very easy, just keep breathing and, you know, behave yourself.
I would hate to think that there's other 100-year-old people that are being harassed like this. Oakland has to change. It's just...
Yeah, Oakland, sanctuary city, deep prosecution,
Right.
decarceration city.
I mean, I'll tell you what, though, it goes, you're right about focusing on what happens at your local level, what happens in a municipality, when will the police not enforce laws, when will your city council make different laws, but it also happens at the state level because in the state of Illinois, the state legislature wants to control everything that happens at the local level, and so you essentially are losing your landlord rights here in the state. They're eviscerating them. You cannot ask anymore about whether or not the person is a citizen. You can't have them prove up that they have income anymore before you rent to somebody. These guys, this is another way to take over that place, another way to squat.
How about taking somebody's home, like this 102-year-old, through fines for criminal acts that he did not commit. So because Oakland is lawless, they've got a commercial property, they got to worry about break-ins. They've got a residential property where they get fined if they aren't Johnny on the spot cleaning up graffiti. So in other words, cleaning up somebody else's crime. And so this is where the city of Oakland is, on the side of criminals. For more on this, Don Boudreaux joins us, American economist, author, professor, co-director of the program on the American economy and globalization at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. Don, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. That's a crazy story.
I mean, so, you know, I know we talk macro this but I mean, at the micro level, at the homeowner level, I mean, people who play by the rules, particularly in big city America, are just getting pummeled by a government they finance. And I mean, I think this is as big a story as any other economic issue.
Well, you know, progressive ideology is just uncaged now, and it is the ruling way of thinking of most people in big city governments, and they have these textbook notions that you have exploiters, and exploiters are the people who own property and work and earn income, and the people who are poor, they must be poor because they're being exploited by the exploiters. And so we have to do everything we can to bestow favors upon the poor. And of course, you know, that creates incentives to commit crime by defunding the police, talking about defunding the police. It's a nutty ideology, but it's one that is mysteriously, to me, still prevalent among so many people. I wish more people would have the experience that David Mamet had. By the way, it's a great book. I'm glad you mentioned it. Because it did change him. I don't know why it doesn't change more people's minds.
Well, it's sort of we see this obviously in Chicago, and you understand the mentality very well, but it's like, this is terrible. I'm going to vote for the other Democrat. To pretend like that the other Democrat is the one who's going to bring change, and then you're just on this merry-go-round.
Well, am I not wrong? But isn't in Chicago's case, isn't the other Democrat truly better than the one you actually elected?
No, not
really. No, I mean, we continue to find new bottoms. We've gone from Lightfoot to Brandon Johnson. We hit bottom when we dig here.
Yeah, wow. Okay, I thought Dallas was at least a little bit better.
Oh well, Vallis, if he would have won, perhaps marginally, but I mean, it's all just sort of pace of descent. There's no change in attitude.
Particularly the coastal and northern big cities are in the grips of this, but it's a nationwide unfortunate phenomenon, and I truly don't understand it, because when you are at the local level, you experience that kind of tyranny, you experience that kind of lawlessness, and why it doesn't change more people's minds and wake them up to the cancerousness, the malignancy of that ideology is beyond me.
Well, I think it's because if you're not mugged by reality yourself, then you haven't been mugged. So there's a little bit of that going on.
Well,
Then we're in good shape, because eventually all these people are going to be mugged by reality and by the thugs in their neighborhoods.
Well, I mean, it's
it comes to that.
It's one of those things. It's hard to talk about supply and demand curves, get people to understand basic economics when you hear stories like this. So this is not necessarily economic, but Gary Becker. I mean, human behavior is all economic and in some analysis, and so this is part of it too. So I'm at this event, and a Chicago expat is telling me the story about her neighbor, and this is like when they realized it was time to go. This is a friend of theirs, well-heeled person, lives in the Gold Coast, wealthy neighborhood in Chicago and so forth. She was a block away last year or the year before, I can't remember exactly when it happened, when this rapper, FGB Duck or whatever his name was killed in a drive-by shooting on one of the main high-end retail drags in Chicago on the Gold Coast. A block away. I mean, this was the middle of the day, a drive-by shooting, window shoppers up and down the sidewalks. The place was up for grabs. She was a block away. And she said in response to that, like, in terms of, don't you fear for your safety in Chicago, what's going on in Chicago? The woman said, well, that was a targeted killing.
Oh, okay. Well, okay.
So as long as I don't get on the wrong side of some rapper or some gang in Chicago, then I'm fine. They're not going to come after me. That was a targeted killing, even though they opened fire and could have killed multiple innocent bystanders. But that's the mentality. The mentality is that, it's the self-delusion that's required to not see things for what they are.
It is. I mean, it's truly self-delusion. It's almost an intentional effort to not see things as they are. It's very difficult to explain. You open the segment with this stuff about takings, and I just want to emphasize that's exactly right. When government cannot take property simply by changing the legislative language with which it does it. It can take a hotel. I own this hotel, but it has to pay the hotel owner just compensation for it. But if the government says, you have to let anyone who comes to your hotel live there at whatever price they want to pay for as long as they want to stay, and you can't do anything about it, then that is just as much a property taking as an outright formal one. And it's unfortunate that the courts are so reluctant to see that similarity. I think they might be moving in that direction, but that is a taking, and it's a constitutionally protected form of property rights that's that's violated by these rent control statutes and by these anti-eviction statutes. And they should all be swept away under the Fifth Amendment's takings clause.
I know that Milton Friedman famously said there's no such thing as a free lunch, but the Biden administration is trying to prove him wrong. The Department of Ag plans to provide free lunches to kids, free lunches, quote, including many whose parents earn six-figure incomes. 72 the report is up to 72% of America's 50 million public school students could soon be on free or reduced school, the Department of Ag's free or reduced school lunch program. So now when you think about, this is a poor school, they've got 50, 60, 70, 80% of the kids on free and or reduced school lunch programs. Well, now you have to peel back the layers a little bit to understand just exactly how poor this school is, since everybody's on the dole.
Yeah. I live in Fairfax County, one of the wealthiest counties in the country, and I'm sure that this program is going to wind up increasing free school lunches in Fairfax, where, frankly, almost no one is poor. But you're right; it's going to skew the statistics, and you're going to have all the poverty pimps, to use a favorite term of my late colleague Walter Williams. The poverty pimps pointing to how many, as you say, how many children are on free lunches, which must indicate that America is very poor. Unfortunately, given the policies that the Biden administration is pursuing, Americans will be very poor if we don't change those policies very soon.
Well,
go ahead, Jeannie.
I was just going to say, and all that food goes to waste. A large percentage of that food just gets thrown out every single day. They feed them a free breakfast. They take a bite or two. They leave. It all goes to waste. You talk to anybody in the school administration, they'll tell you that.
That's because Michelle Obama put together the menu. Maybe if it was better food.
Imagine the 7-year-old's excitement when they get to see their celery.
Don Boudreaux, American economist, author, professor, co-director of the program on the American economy and globalization at the Mercatus Center at George Mason University. Don, thank you as always.
My pleasure.
And Don joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Cooler weather is here. Is your vehicle ready for the winter? Remke's Garage, your diesel engine and transmission specialist, can inspect your vehicle so you won't end up on the side of the road. Take it to the experts. Take it to Remke's Garage.